So here we are, and it's January 2024, and I would like to do our very first garden tour with you. Take you around the garden and tell you about the plants we've got, and yeah, please join me. Our garden around the house yard, is about an acre of land, which Dad and Dave have completely walled with the rock fence. So it took them multiple years, didn't it, Mum?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Big job.
Yep. So we've got this beautiful concrete pot that weighs an absolute ton right at the front gate here. And it's getting lovely and weathered, and moss and lichen growing over it. On the other side here we've got our generator shed if our power goes out. We are on the power, we're not off-grid. And we have our big generator in there as our backup power. So just inside the gate here we've got this lovely silver plant with a beautiful Buddha settled in the middle of. This one is
Senecio.
or silver ragwort, I think, was another common name. You were going to say something about its looking after it?
You don't need to cut it back too hard. We made the mistake once of cutting it right back. Took a long time to recover. So now we just clip it back 2 or 3 times a year, very lightly, and it always looks nice. It's the colour, the contrast of colour between that and other greens that makes a nice statement at the front gate. And the Buddha there, he looks lovely in the middle. And it does get a creamy yellow flower on it too, doesn't it, at one stage through its cycle. And above the Senecio we have this beautiful wisteria on an old wagon wheel that's welded onto a post, and it looks just magnificent in spring. Spring's when it comes into its own, rather than right at the moment. But there are still a few flowers around the bush, just not many. Beside the Senecio we've got this little purple ground cover. What's this one, Mum? Convolvulus.
Yes, so it's really hardy. It just does its thing.
And then of course a bit further on here the seaside daisy.
And yes, I might drop a picture in here of what it looks like in its finest in spring. And then behind them we have the lomandras, yes. And the lomandras are good for birds, like their seed heads. And they're just really tough. They're a nice strappy plant, and just so drought tolerant. In fact, our entire garden, we get about 30 inches, 76 centimetres of rain in a year here on average, and we can certainly have drier years than that. Yeah, so everything in our garden does get that. We do have, as you can see here, we do have some sprinklers around in the garden, and we can water if we need to, but we certainly don't. Everything is planted with in mind to be able to cope with less or little irrigation. Councils use them often in their streetscaping because they're so tough. And above them we have some beautiful crepe myrtles in flower at the moment, and they're really putting on a lovely show this year. Pinks and purples and reds, and of course at the other end we've got and this end we have some new white crepe myrtles which we've planted to replace a large tree we took down in this position over here. Just beside that, past that, we've filled in a pond which the dogs were getting into and creating a terrible mess with their muddy selves. So we've filled it in and planted it up with buckwheat, which is a soil conditioner, and it won't be in there for very long, but it does have these lovely little white flowers which the insects do like. So it does have its own benefit, and it doesn't look bad.
That's very pretty.
Yes, we'll put we're taking that out soon and putting
probably put some sort of annual in temporarily till I think of what permanent plant I'd like.
Yeah. We do like our sculpture in the garden, so we've got some cute little monkeys here. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. And then another favourite of ours, of course, is birds. So we have lots of birds sculptures as well. Here's another pair of monkeys. What's this little bush here above the monkeys, Mum?
Eriostemon. It's a native. Flowers in the spring.
Yep.
Loved by bees and other insects.
Yep. And we've planted just below that a pink crepe myrtle, so it's only little at the moment, but it will get big like the ones above here. There's lovely ones up here. So the crepe myrtles are a small tree. On the other side of the path here, between these two new crepe myrtles that we have, is a little garden which has had evening primrose in it. And evening primrose is a charming little cottage garden plant. But it doesn't look pretty all of the time, and it doesn't look pretty right now, and it doesn't look pretty at Christmas, which is important to us because we have a big family do here at Christmas time, and we want this area looking nice. So what's the plan here, Mama?
We're going to turn it into lawn.
So we're going to take this garden right out and just turf it. Which looks really nice. We've got turf underneath the crepe myrtles at the other end of the house. So that'll be fine. And there's a lovely little chicken in a bird bath here. And she manages to feature in a lot of my photos because she's so picturesque there. We've got quite a few bromeliads around the house. I remember when I had my own house, Kathy and Mum recommended that bromeliads is one of the a really tough plant that I would find hard to kill, and they were right. I didn't manage to kill them, so I can only highly recommend bromeliads, and they get really interesting flowers. Of course, there's no flowers on it at the moment.
No, late winter usually.
Yeah.
Flowers. And
they sort of create have a little tube coming down to the ground which collects water. So they're a nice little habitat for frogs and things in the garden too.
You'll quite often find little tiny green frogs.
Yes.
In them.
Yeah, and we've got.
But they do like the shade.
Yes, it's a bit too sunny for it really just here. It was fine before when we had the larger tree overshadowing it, but yes, right now it's suffering. And we've got pretty white gora behind it there. And the bees love the goras, all the insects. And you might notice there behind the gora is a garbage bin, and we've got garbage bins full of water around the house in various places as a firefighting measure. As last-ditch effort, we can bail a bit of water out of that. We're very serious about our firefighting here because we're very concerned about the chance of bushfire. And this Chinese lantern, this one here, isn't it, Mum?
Or a butylon, yes.
Yes, and the birds love those sort of bell-like flowers, but it's not doing well, is it?
No, Dave tells me it's got borers, so we'll probably have to go.
Yeah.
I'll probably put in another crepe myrtle.
Yep.
They seem bomb-proof.
They do. Yeah, we just keep going. We keep going back to a few plants that we repeat over and over, which are crepe myrtles and salvias,
Yes.
a huge repeat, and goras.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all, and westringas is another one.
Yes.
We've used multiple times.
Yes.
So we call these the Dr. Seuss tree, but that's not their real name. Well, their common name is a ponytail palm. I'm not sure what the scientific name is, but we think they look really like those trees in the Dr. Seuss books. So that's what we call them. And then on the other side of the path here, we've got a beautiful stone bench that Mum's sisters gave you this stone bench for one
My
of your...
60th birthday present,
Yeah.
that was,
That
from
was,
all my sisters.
Yes, so that was a lovely present. And this interesting brick construction over beside the seat there, Mum?
Yes, that was Kathy's idea, or she got it from somewhere, but she made that.
Yeah, so these are just loose bricks placed in a circle and then lined with a bit of shade cloth to hold the dirt in so it doesn't run away. And then we've planted, so this is a purple hop bush, a Buddleia.
Yes, there's about 60 loose bricks comprising that pot.
Yes. And the purple hop bush, it turns a nice sort of purpley crimson colour in winter, is it?
Yes, when the first frost
Hits it.
when the frosts happen.
Yeah. So we have a collection. This is our blue collection around here. So we've got some lovely blue pots and, you know, a nice little blue pussycat. And I think this is supposed to be from New Zealand, the bird, isn't it, Mum?
Yes.
The tall plant here is a camellia, is it, Mum?
Yes.
Yeah. And the little blue one is a lobelia.
Yes.
Yeah, it's only just getting going. It gets a lot. It'll spread out and fill that pot. And beside that is a gerbera with lovely brick orange flowers. We have designed the garden particularly to attract the birds, haven't we?
Yes.
Birds, bees, butterflies and beneficial insects, I think the saying goes. Yeah, so the birds love the bees love the white crepe myrtles.
We try and have plants so we've got something flowering all year round. That's our aim.
Yeah.
And always, of course, lots of water, lots of water features everywhere. They need food, water, shelter. They need the little birds need a bush to shelter in, and we try and make sure we've got that. And food-wise, lots of insects, things that attract insects. We try to concentrate on those plants, and of course, lots of water.
Yeah. And this beside Dad's office here is another camellia, is it?
Yes, yes.
Do you know the
Sasanqua. Sasanqua.
Yeah.
Camellia, that one.
Yeah. And then over here in this lovely green pot is the rabbit's foot fern, which has, you might be able to see there, yes, yeah, the little tiny fronds are very furry, like a rabbit's foot. And beside the rabbit's foot fern is some very, very important plants and highly underrated in the garden, pet grass. You know, we've got dogs and we've had cats in the past as well, which have been inside cats so that they don't attack the wildlife. But both of the dogs and the cats really enjoy having some grass to nibble on. So that's particularly good for it. And we've got a series of succulents coming around this corner under the eave. And then on the corner here we've got our one and only topiary plant. What's this one, Mum?
It's a small-leaved honeysuckle.
Yeah, which is really quite pretty.
We keep that clipped.
Yes, could probably do with a bit of a trim at the moment, but not looking too shabby. So then we're coming around to a beautiful raised garden full of marigolds, and they have given us just a stunning show. This, it's been months now that they've been looking stunning.
Yes, they've been very good.
Yeah, and there's just the variety of colours in them too is really pretty. So we just got came in a flat of mixed colours, and below the marigolds we've got a lower section, and in the lower section there's quite a few of these naturalised salvias. I think it's just called an apricot salvia, that one. And salvias are just so tough. And then behind that is a lovely weeping apricot, and that is the first thing to flower in the garden. It's flowering in July.
Late July,
yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, it's still into winter for us here in our Australian garden when the flowering apricot's flowering. And then you can see just down behind the stone fence there, got some lovely fluffy grasses popping up.
So coming past the topiary, we've got a selection of succulents in pots, looking very pretty, and of course succulents require very little, very little in the way of water. Down below the marigolds, we've got some Californian poppies with a natural ivy in there, doing a lovely job. And beside them, on the lower section, is another salvia. This one. I looked up the internet, and the internet told, just looking at the flowers, this salvia looks like a waverley.
Yes, it is. It is, love.
Yeah. And then beside the marigolds, we've got another pot of this lovely grey foliage. What was it again? The
Senecio.
Senecio. Yep. And beside the Senecio, we have our dragon section. We've got a mother with 2 babies, and she's looking very fierce. She's a bit scary for the children sometimes, actually. Yeah, 2 little cute babies there. We do like our sculpture in the garden. And then against the house here, we've got a nice little row of a variety of pink gerberas. They're looking very pretty down below the window. And opposite that, we have our last raised bed here, which has our zinnias that we've planted. So this is the first time that we've tried zinnias, and we have been just so impressed with first of all how quickly they came up from seed. It was really, really fast, and so the germination of the seed was really fast, and now that we're just really impressed with the flowers. The flowers and there's such a variety, they come in such a variety of colours. These lovely lime greens. And purples as well. We're just, at the moment we're keeping them pretty well trimmed back and taking all the flowers off them, because we were trying to encourage them to branch out, and so that we have lots of flowers for the wedding, which was coming up in April. So, yeah. We're very, very impressed with the zinnias. And we have picked, we've been picking them already, and they're lasting really well in the vase. So I can highly recommend zinnias as something to grow for a fast reward. And yeah, and then there's this beautiful salvia here that it's just got from Bunnings.
Yes, I'm not sure of the name, but I didn't...
Well, I looked up Bunnings' website, so I think I've got the name of that. Salvia Cathedral Deep Blue. And it's we got one plant of that, and Kathy put it in one of her pots over there at her cabinet, and we were so impressed with it that we have propagated from that one plant, and yes,
very successfully.
Very successful, very easy to propagate the salvias. So if you've got one, you can soon make it multiples of that one you like. And then there is an agastache in amongst it, the salvias and the zinnias, and as you can see, the bees love the agastaches as well. And then down the end of this garden, we've got
this little daisy is starting. This is an African daisy.
Yes,
now,
got one flower at the moment.
Now this particular variety does not close up in dull weather or at night. Right. Most of this African daisies do that, yep. But this one doesn't. It stays open.
And then beside it here we've got the first of our Buddleias, is another mainstay of our garden, because particularly the butterflies and the birds. Oh, well, everyone really loves
Bees,
it.
but
The bees, birds, butterflies love it. And that they really are attracted to the Buddleias. And sometimes different Buddleias are more successful than others in their job of attracting the beneficial bees. And then there, just beside the Buddleia there is a cast iron plant. What's Aspidistra? I may sound like I know what I'm talking about, but it's actually all information that's being relayed to me by Kathy and Mum. So I'll have to give them full credit. So this little plant in this square pot here, tall square pot, is a thyme, and then beside the thyme we've got a lovely fuchsia. Do you know which fuchsia this is?
Fuchsia Magelica.
Angelica. Nice. With a lovely little, I think they look like ballerinas dancing. And then just past the fuchsia along here on the steps, we've got a few pots of native violets, and these are being prepared for the wedding. We're going to have 4 installations in each corner, an installation in each corner of the marquee, and these pretty little native violets will be featuring in one corner each. Opposite the native violets here, we've got a nice little water feature. I've just noticed the water pistol. Here we have the aftermath of Boxing Day. And with standard, with violets around it. They're not in flower at the moment, but this is just a standard violet, not a native violet. And they have the bromeliads behind. And this bush behind is, do you remember what it's called?
Abelia.
Abelia. And it's just got tiny little, insignificant little white flowers, but it's surprisingly attractive to the birds. I often see little
Eastern spinebill
in here feeding on these little white flowers. This little water is a particular favourite of the dogs. They like to come along and drink out of this lizard water. And here we've got some more sculpture and a bird bath with the bromeliads behind. And this is a wider leaf bromeliad that gets. This is a wider leaf, the bromeliad, that gets a different flower, and does tend to hold a bit more water because of the nice, it sort of funnels the water down into its little well at the bottom. And as you can see here beside, we've got another one of these bins with the water, full of water for firefighting purposes. Down below is a very tall salvia that's managing to climb up there, and some Buddleias, and a very large weeping mulberry too. And that weeping mulberry is down on the same level as the weeping apricot, which is just over there. So those 2 weeping trees sort of frame that bottom lower section. Against the house we've got another Aspidistra, a cast iron plant, and beside that our firefighting hose reel. We've got firefighting hose reels on both ends of the house and over on this cabin as well. And then we have Mum's potting bench, which is a new addition, although it doesn't look like it. Dad's managed to make that look very established. We're using some old timbers, and that's a really good height for Mum in her wheelchair to play with her pot plants and pot things up and whatnot. Next we have my section. I've got the little section of greens in pots here, and I use these to add to the chicken bucket, and when I feel that needs to, the chickens aren't in the yard with plenty of greens in them. And behind there, that is
some beautiful fennel plants. And these fennel plants are wonderful insect attractors. And so the bees and the lots of insects hang about in the fennel plants, and then that attracts the insect-eating birds like the fairy wrens. You'll often see fairy wrens hanging about in these. Okay, and then we've got another Buddleia. This one's a bit more purple. That first one was very chartreuse colour. And beside that, what's this little pink bush, Mum? The pale pink in a pot?
A hollyhock?
Yeah, so this is a hollyhock, looking very pretty. And beside the hollyhock we have an aloe vera plant down here, which is an essential to have in your garden for healing purposes. You can use it on stings, it's really good, and sunburn. The gel inside the leaves, you just snap a leaf off and use the gel. And then we've got this, what's this purple weedy looking thing, Mum?
Verbena bonarensis.
Whether a plant is a weed or not, and it's all whether or not you want it. And why do we plant this?
Well, the butterflies and bees and the birds all love it.
It's a good host plant for some of the butterflies to lay their
Caterpillars on, isn't it?
I think so, but
I think that's why.
you often see the butterflies in particular love it.
Yeah.
That's why I love it.
And then beside that is a Westringia, which gets a little tiny white flower, but it's just sort of a nice compact grey bush all year round.
Very hardy.
So to me this is one of our most attractive areas of our garden. I really love this area with the two large white crepe myrtle trees shading the grass, and I just think it's so pretty. We've got the waterers, bird baths hanging out of the trees here, and a seed feeder for the little red-browed finches. This is one of the most, I think, the prettiest areas of our garden. Underneath these two large white flowering crepe myrtle trees, and here you can see how pretty the bark of the crepe myrtles gets. As it peels off, you get this lovely orangey red colour coming through, and they're just so pretty. So in these pots here we have, that's the Westringia, and we've got zinnias, a couple of pots of zinnias here. We've been trimming these back so we can get more flowers come up, and beside that a lovely white gerbera. For Mum's vision, the white and the yellow flowers are getting more and more important because they're the ones she can see best in the garden. And we've got more pots of Buddleias that have been trimmed back. These were heavily eaten earlier in the season by some little grubs, which no doubt were some sort of butterfly that liked the Buddleias as a host plant.
They were a moth, I think. A
Right.
moth that came out at night.
Yeah. And then another Westringia beside it. And this lovely red strappy leaf is a red New Zealand flax plant. And another gerbera. Not sure what colour that one is. And then below these we've got a row of citrus, oranges. We've got navels, valencias, and a kumquat as well there too. There's
Mandarins as well.
and a mandarin, yeah. So we love our citrus, and in the background there is a lovely garden full of white goras and red hot pokers. And the honey eaters love the red hot pokers, and it's really nice to have both the red hot pokers come in two varieties, a summer and a winter flowering, and so it's nice to have both of those for both the seasons. And then we have one of my favourite plants in the garden is the Gaimea lilies. Now these leaves here, they are about 2 metres high. You can't really appreciate how tall they are, and they have huge flower spikes. You can see one going up there, and the flower spikes when they come to maturity are about 4 or 5 metres tall, and I have wonderful memories of Gaimea plants from my childhood. Back over here with the fennel bushes, we've got a nice little feeder. This feeder has fat cake in it, and so it attracts the seed-eating little birds, particularly the fairy wrens. So we get scrub wrens and fairy wrens here, and they will come along and eat at the fat cake. I did make another video with the recipe of how to make fat cake. So if you're interested in attracting the fairy wrens or scrub wrens to your garden, you could look at that video on how to make fat cake and bring them to your garden too. Have some firetails here deciding to come into the feeder. So these are, red-browed finches. We've been calling them firetails for years, but I think the correct term is a red-browed finch. You can see a little red stripe over his eye. So they can get into that cage, but the larger seed-eating birds like the parrots, they can't. And there is another video that I put out on stopping Arthur, which is all about stopping the king parrots getting into this feeder. They're so cute. We really enjoy the little tiny birds coming in close to the garden. Here below, the second white crepe myrtle, which is a more upright version. The first one was Fantasy, which is a more umbrella-like structure, and Natchez is the other white crepe myrtle that we like to plant. It's much more available and in nurseries, and we've got this beautiful frog statue, and I managed to get a shot of a lizard the other day who was posing himself beautifully on top of this frog. And what I particularly like about is how we're getting this lovely weathering of on his back with the lichen, just like a frog gets. They get lovely spots on their backs. I was saying earlier how these Gaimea lilies are one of my favourite plants in the garden, and that is because as a child I can remember with my cousins making cubby houses in the bush entirely out of Gaimea plants. So we'd weave the leaves into roofs and walls and use the large flower stalks as our structural beams. And so these plants have a special place in my heart, and they get a large red flower at the top of their stalk, which the honey eaters like, and particularly we get the blue-faced honey eaters coming in to eat at those flowers because it's such a large flower, and they are the largest honey eater that we get. And then we've got over here, we used to have a very large plane tree, and that's this stump here, which we had to cut down because the seed pods that it got on it turned into hairy seeds, which then blew all over the washing, and the leaves from the plane tree were a massive fire hazard because they didn't break down in the garden and they dropped their leaves in autumn, but come high summer they were still hanging around in huge piles, being a fire hazard. So we decided we had to take that out. And so in replacing the plane tree, we've put in 3 more white crepe myrtles. So in a trio here, one beside the laundry here, and one up beside the sand pit, which I've got for the kids, and one here beside the old tree stump. And their canopies when they are mature should join together and make a nice shaded area for people to have a sit down at. Down on the lower side of the garden, the path, is the white goras we were looking at earlier, and beside that is a beautiful weeping mulberry which we have turned into a cubby house tree. So the children like to play in there, and they have their little tea parties, and we've got a little table and chairs set up underneath. It's really very sweet. And then across beside that is an beautiful African tree called an albizia, and it's a sensitive tree. If you touch the leaves, they will curl up on you, and it's very drought tolerant and gets these pretty little pink flower puffs all over it at Christmas, which is very festive. And then over at Kathy's cabin here, we've got a kumquat on the corner there, and some pink goras with the fire reel behind. Kathy has a beautiful ornamental grape growing all over her veranda here, and which is just a picture in autumn. And we've just had a little fairy wren build a nest in the middle of this chandelier here over Christmas, and she managed to raise her babies, 3 little eggs. I put out a short on her with the eggs in the nest, so if you're interested. Coming just beside the driveway here, we've got a raised bed garden with a very lovely little red tube-like flower. I think they call it a cigarette plant, and they've got, you know, the honey eaters love anything with this tube-like flowers. The honey eaters love them. And then beside that we've got a mint bush, a catmint, and the bees, the insects, bees in particular, love the catmint. So we're in the courtyard garden here, and we've got the compost bins, and this is a yellow flowered plant that the council often uses in their roadside gardenscape. I'll look it up on the internet and drop a name on the screen here for you. And above it we've got yet another salvia, and I believe this one is called Hot Lips. I looked it up, and then a blue plumbago beside that, a lovely drift of white goras, white and pink goras along the bottom, with some blue salvias below. That's the deep blue cathedral. So we propagated all of these plants from cuttings from the one plant over at Kathy's there. And above them we have a row of wistringas with some Buddleias in amongst it. This is a lovely dark purple Buddleia here. And of course the glorious, so above that we have a row of our lovely coloured crepe myrtles, which are putting on a particularly good show this year. Some years they're not as good as others, but the white seems to be very consistent. The coloured ones not quite so much. So we have a lovely stone bench here. Came from a house down in Sydney that was being demolished, a lovely sandstone house. Don't ask me why they were pulling it down. Anyway, when Dad was in real estate down in Sydney in his working years, his friend was in charge of the job demolishing this house, and he wanted somewhere to put all this beautiful stonework that was just being taken to the tip. So he asked Dad if he could bring it up here, which of course he did, and he paid us in sandstone for a place to deposit, to leave the stone here for many years. So we ended up using a bit of it in the structure of our garden here. And above that we've got some rosemary. So that's a prostrate rosemary, isn't it, Mum?
Yeah.
It grows fairly in a flat manner and not rather than an upright manner. And the rosemary has a lovely blue flower, you can see there. And the bees, of course, love it. Bees and the other beneficial insects. And is it convolvulus?
Yes, again, yes.
And then we've got this purple convolvulus spilling down the rock wall here. and it's doing a fine job. Then at the end of the garden we've got a set of stairs going up to the gate at the front, up at the road there, and there's yet another salvia over here. This lovely lime green salvia with a blue flower is called a Mexican limelight, and it's just such a bright splash in the garden against the other foliages. It's really, I really like it.
And again, the spinebills and butterflies love it.
Yes, yes, indeed. And then there's the steps going up to the front gate. And then around the corner is the ponytail palm. So we have finished our tour. So it's starting to warm up a bit now. Thanks so much for joining me for our very first garden tour. I plan to do these at least seasonally, possibly monthly. We'll see how we go. And so if you did enjoy our content, please do like and subscribe, because it really does help out our channel. And actually the very best thing you can do is to share our video on your social media and to get more people to see it. That'd be great. Thanks a lot for that. Bye.